Welcome, everybody. We're so lucky tonight. Just so you know, I'm Laura Spitz. I'm the Vice Provost of Global Engagement here at Seattle University and a professor of law. President Peñalver was unable to be with us tonight, and he regrets that. He's in Chicago at a meeting of presidents of the American Jesuit universities, but he sends his warm regards. So we are honored to host this evening and gather so many of you from our Seattle community to join us in an engaging conversation about global compassion. I can't imagine a more important conversation at this moment in history. Our university's mission is dedicated to educating the whole person, to professional formation, and to empowering leaders for a just and humane world. Mr. Satyarthi's work and life is a shining example of our university's values, our core values here at Seattle, and our leadership, which is committed to the common good. I just want to say that through a generous donation by the Roundglass Foundation, led by Sunny Singh, we are proud that the Roundglass India Center was founded at Seattle University last September. Our collaborations with India, the world's largest democracy, are incredibly important to our university, to our research, and to our community. Indian students make up the majority of our international graduate student population, and the numbers continue to grow. In the law school alone, the size of the Masters of Law program has gone from 3 to 30 students in 1 year, in large part due to the interest of Indian students. I mean, that's 10 times the size of just a year ago. Before I introduce you to our esteemed guests this evening, I want to thank a few people. I want to thank the staff of the Roundglass India Center, including its manager, Shannon Young, and Stephanie Sanchez. Of course, we wouldn't be here without their hard work. Thank you also to the founder of Catalytic Innovators Group, Dr. Akbar Badshah, for including Seattle University in Mr. Satyarthi's itinerary for his Seattle visit. We're so lucky. And of course, to Rick Simonson and Elliott Bay Books for hosting the book sales and signing at this event. We have a long history of a partnership with Elliott Bay, for which we are very grateful. I want to acknowledge the head of Chancery, Suresh Sharma, from Seattle's new Indian consulate, for joining us this evening. And finally, thank you to, yes. I mean, I want to thank, there's so many people to thank. Let's just clap everybody I want to thank. I'm going to thank one more group of people. But we don't have to clap anymore. Thank you to university event staff and many others who were instrumental. As you all know, to have an event like this happen, there are many, many, many people involved in making the evening possible. Really, the person I want to thank most is our moderator for this conversation and the founder and director of the Roundglass India Center at Seattle University, Sital Kalantry. Professor Kalantry is a tenured professor of law. She's the associate dean, actually the first associate dean of graduate and international programs at the law school. She's an expert in Indian comparative law, business and human rights law, and feminist legal theory. She has published over 40 scholarly works, including 2 books on India. Her writing has been cited by the US Supreme Court, the Indian Supreme Court, the New York Times, CNN, etc., and so on. She was a Fulbright scholar at Jindal Global Law School. She has received several multi-million-dollar grants to establish centers such as the Roundglass India Center. She has taught at Cornell Law School, the University of Chicago Law School, Yale Law School. We are very lucky to have her here. Prior to teaching, she was a corporate lawyer in New York for 6 years, and she has degrees from the University of Pennsylvania Law School, the London School of Economics, and Cornell University. And of course, yeah, let's thank Sheila. We're so lucky. I know, I'm getting to the guest of honor, but we can have more than one special person in the room. And of course, our honored guest this evening is Mr. Kailash Satyarthi, He is a prominent social reformer and unwavering advocate for the marginalized and voiceless. As you know, because you're here, he was honored with the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014 for his tireless crusade against the oppression of children and youth and his commitment to ensuring every child's right to education. Through his courageous and persistent advocacy, he has played a pivotal role in shaping groundbreaking legislation worldwide, intending to eradicate violence against the powerless. His remarkable efforts have left an indelible mark on the path to a more equitable and just society. I am going to give you just a few examples. Through his children's rights organization, he has been instrumental in liberating more than 115,000 children from child labor, slavery, trafficking, and other forms of exploitation, and then subsequently developed a successful model for their education and rehabilitation. The Global March Against Child Labor, which he led, galvanized support in 103 countries, resulting in the adoption of the International Labor Organization Convention 182 on the worst forms of child labor. He is also the founding president of the Global Campaign for Education. He has also been at the forefront of driving child-related agendas into the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which resulted in the UN Secretary General appointing him a Sustainable Development Advocate in 2021. I have so many examples, but maybe I should stop talking. I'm gonna give you two more. In 2016, he launched Laureates and Leaders for Children, a platform that brings together Nobel laureates and global leaders committing to work together for the world's most vulnerable children. Alongside former child laborers and students, he launched the 100 Million campaign in 2016 to inspire and mobilize young people to stand up and act for their own rights, but also the rights of their peers. Okay, I'm going to stop. Before we hear, I really have so many examples, but I'm going to let him tell you himself. Before we hear from Mr. Satyarthi and Sital Kalantry, we have a brief film that the Satyarthi Movement for Global Compassion has prepared to kick off the evening's conversation. Wow, globalizing compassion sounds like the best idea yet. So without further ado, I'm going to give the microphones over to Professor Kalantry and Mr. Satyarthi.
Yes, yeah, true.
Thank you, Vice Provost Spitz. It is such an honor to be here today, and thank you all for joining us on this Friday evening. I'm in the presence of an incredible individual, as well as an incredible spouse, which there's always a partnership that makes this happen. Mr. Satyarthi, there are 3 Nobel Prize winners from India, of Indian citizens, in ever, one of which was Amartya Sen in economics, and another was Mother Teresa in peace, and you're the third, and she is now a saint. So I think, you know, if we had that, we would certainly, I think many of us feel that you are as well. So what I want to start with asking you is this question. You've been doing this work for nearly 50 years. And let me take you back to 1980 when you started. You were an engineer. If you had come to Seattle, you would be a billionaire right now. You might have been a billionaire maybe in rupees in India if you had stayed, right? But many of my students and ourselves as immigrants, we all feel, and I felt, that, you know, we have to do the most lucrative thing. We have to be engineers, we have doctors. We can't go and leave what our parents had come here hoping that they would gain. So, and I often counsel students that they should follow their passion. And I'd love to hear from you what inspired you to do that, and how and why and how you followed your passion.
Thank you. My imagination struck when you said that Mother Teresa became the saint. So my aspiration and dreams went up and up and up. So please give me one moment to calm down. But let me share a story before I answer your question. Once a journalist was driving in a countryside and he noticed a man was standing in an open field somewhere on a barren land. And he was not having anything, and there was no grass or no crop or anything. So that made the journalist curious, and he slowed down his car and then stopped. And then he went to this guy and asked, "Sir, what are you doing here in this scorching heat?" He said, "Don't disturb me. I am doing very important work." So journalist had to wait for another few minutes, and then he said, "Could I disturb you, sir? What are you doing here?" He said, "I am waiting for a Nobel Prize." So man more surprisingly asked to this guy, journalist. Journalist asked, "Sir, how come?" The man was very cool. And he answered, "I read in my childhood that those who are out standing in their fields, one day they will become the Nobel Prize winner. So I'm out standing in my field and I do it every day." So neither he was a saint nor I am a saint. It was Mother Teresa. Well, actually, it goes back to my childhood. This spark, one can say that it was the first spark of compassion. Others can say that it was my first spark for quest for freedom of human beings and liberty and justice, human dignity. But these interpretations came much later. It was the first day of my school. I shared this story today, but I can share it again. I was 5, to be precise, 5.5 years old. And when I was entering in my school, I saw a cobbler boy sitting outside the school gate. And he was looking at our feet. Perhaps we are going to give him some job of shoe shining, shoe repairing. But all of us were wearing new shoes, or at least good shoes. But I could not forget this boy. When I entered in my class, my thoughts were still with that child, that why he was not with us, rest of us in the classroom. And that was the first question I have asked to my teacher after my short introduction. And teacher was a bit surprised. He said, "Kailash, this is your first day, make new friends, and this is not uncommon. The poor children have to help the families and they do this kind of work." I said, "Okay, sir." But when I was coming back, the child was still sitting and working. Sometimes alone, sometimes along with his father. I asked this to my mother and my friends and relatives, and answer was more or less same. But I was watching that boy every morning and afternoon. One day I gathered all my courage and stopped by and asked this to son and father duo. Boy was very shy, but the man, the cobbler, stood up with folded hands and he said, "बाबूजी, मैंने तो कभी पहले सोचा नहीं था." Sir, I've never thought about it because my grandfather, my father, me, all went to work since they were children, and the shoe shining, shoe work. And so is my son. And then he took a pause, and then I could feel the utter miserability, hopelessness, helplessness in his eyes. And he said, Sir, you guys are born to go to school. We are born to work. And I could not understand. I started crying. I was just half year old. I could not understand this discrimination and all kind of things. These are heavy words. Later on, I learned. But that day, as a child, I started crying. But that moment had given me a different perspective towards life and society and the world. First of all, I realized that whatever my mother and my teacher and the wise people in my family said to convince me may not always be right. Could be mental complacency that has been there for ages. Because we do it, it happens like that. Since it was a common norm in the society, it does not mean that it could be true, it could be right. So I started thinking about what is right and wrong because I was born in a Brahmin Hindu family, and I was taught that God has made us equal human beings. And if we are equal human beings, then what is going on here? And that perspective I carried it always. And that was perhaps the fire or the spark which I never let down. And it grew up slowly. And I started seeing the world with a different eye. When today I say that it was the first spark of compassion, it was because I could feel that boy in me, and I could feel myself in that boy. That unison, that oneness between the two different boys was the beginning of my movement. That was the spark. So when I was giving up my career as electrical engineer or teaching in university, I was specialized in high voltage transformer design. And in 70s or so, that was much demanding job because the world was going for rural electrification. And everywhere in the world, in United Nations and other agencies, there was heavy demand for specialized engineers in transformer design. But I never thought about continuing my study, my career. The reason I did my engineering or my job was that I belong to a very modest family. My father was a police constable who passed away when I was young. So my mother and my elder brothers have to take care of my education and my life. So it was necessary for me to do some job for at least a year or two so that I can somehow make my mother feel happy, feel good. Because she has to sold out her ornaments for my higher studies after my graduation, specialization in this particular sector. It cost money. So I did it. But luckily then I have fallen in love with a girl. Beautiful. And she was the first who believed in the madness of an engineer. My wife Sumedha is sitting here. So two of us started thinking that let us give up the career of engineer. Because I was struggling. It was not easy thing because my mother was crying and holding my hand, and my wife said that, don't do it like that. If you wanted to really help children, then I can sell all my remaining ornaments and my small house so that you can start an orphanage or a school for poor children. But I it was difficult to convince her that I'm not talking about charity. I am talking about the human dignity. I'm talking about the human rights and the children rights. Child rights was a non-issue. Nobody has ever talked about child rights. Child rights notion came much late. I'm talking about the late 70s, and um, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child was adopted in 1989 and was in force since 1990. And I gave up my career in 1980. So it was very tough. All my friends uh, making mockery of me and so on. But to answer your question specifically, that when someone has a clear purpose of life or a dream which is transformed into clear purpose, then the dream itself has a light, energy. It becomes your path, your light, the energy in your legs, your speed. And I was embarking upon a journey which had no path, because nobody was working against child slavery or child labor in my country or anywhere in the world. There was no example. Many of you will be surprised to know that there was no single news story in any newspaper. When I was giving up my career as engineer, I wanted to work on this issue. There was no study, there was nothing, because there was no law also. India had some provisions in the old British laws in 20, 30 places, but there was no singular Indian law still enacted, because it has not yet been acknowledged that it's a crime against children. And the child right notion was not yet there. So it was a situation where one has to make its own path. But before that, one has to know what is your goal. So goal was not clear, but my dream was clear, that I wanted to see a world which is free of exploitation of children. I wanted to see the end of child slavery and child labor. I wanted to see that every child is free to become a child. And that has given me tremendous energy in all events and odds. And that gave me the strength, so that I was not deterred with the cry and tears of my mother, or the mockery of my friends, or the uncertainty of my own career or life. As I said, that I didn't come from the rich family, so there was no support in any manner. But I had full confidence in my dream. I have full confidence in my determination. And I have full confidence in me and Sumedha. And that worked. And then slowly the people joined. As in Hindi, they say that मैं अकेला ही चला था जानवे मंजिल मगर लोग साथ आते गए और कारवां बनता गया. I started my journey alone, but it has its own power, so that the people keep on coming, and it had become a big movement. So that was there. So purpose. So God is not so meager that he has given us birth without any purpose. All of us born with some purpose. And we are conditioned in this whole ecosystem, including education and upbringing and cultures and civilizations and religions and faiths and whatnot. We are conditioned, our brain is conditioned in such a way that we have chosen small, tiny purposes of life. And then we don't know that our being in the world is to make this world a better place. When we were born, we have got a world, and when we leave, we have to leave a better world. At least this should be our minimum purpose. But our purpose is just our luxurious lives, expensive cars, buildings, flying to America and settle down here so that we can lead the happy life. But sometimes I ask myself, because I have never seen Sitalji, you are such a learned person. When I was reading listening your CV, I was amazed. Namaste. So, yeah, so you'll understand. I'm not saying this thing to you or to the Pro-Chancellor or any one of you, but I never come across any rich or richest of the rich person who is really content and happy with his life and can sleep peacefully every day without taking any medicine or taking care of so many other things and going to gym every day because he had to maintain himself or herself. I've never come across any highly intellectual academician who can say the same thing, that he is content and happy. Or any person sitting in power. I have relations with many presidents and prime ministers across the world. And sometimes when in private discussion, when I ask this question, can you sleep like I can sleep? Despite I have been attacked many times, I lost three of my colleagues, I have my broken leg, my broken shoulder, my broken head, but I'm happy. So there are so many people who are happy without having so much accomplishment, what they call accomplishment. Um, so purpose matters a lot.
Thank you so much. There's so much to underscore and unpack from what you said. You know, one of which is to a lesson for all the people who are young people who are thinking about what to do. And I often counsel them, and I say the same thing, which is you'll never be happy unless you do what you love and what you want to pursue. And in terms of an academic, whether I'm happy, I mean, to be honest, if you read one of that unnecessarily generous bio, it was 6 years I was a corporate lawyer and I was not happy, right? And that's why I left to actually do practical human rights work, right? And so to me, that's exactly. And so, I think that's exactly right to gain your happiness. And also I want to follow up on the compassion piece, right? Your story itself is an illustration of your whole movement of compassion. Your whole movement, right, is that we can change the world. Each of us can become compassionate if we see something that sparks that in us, right? Where you said you saw that boy and you said, I'm like this person, but our destinies are different. And why should they be different? And I mean, and I think and to me, that's also why it sparked me to go into actually human rights, is when I would go to India and I would see the differences between the destinies of the girls and me. So how do you bring that to everybody, right? Not everybody necessarily has that innate compassion and there are people who will just walk by somebody like that. There's another person might have just walked by that 5-7-year-old. But how can we spark this movement or continue to spark it? You already are.
Yes, thank you. It's a very, very good question. It is a proven fact that compassion is innate. We are all born with compassion. Just imagine when you were children, like these two toddlers are sitting here and another child who wanted to shake hand with me, but he was shy. He did not come to shake hand. Can you come and shake hand with me? Can you give me this opportunity? You were asking your father, and I was listening carefully that I wanted to shake hand. I will come close to you. Yeah. Good. Lovely. What is your name?
Rohan. Rohan.
Rohan. Beautiful name. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this great opportunity. Thank you. So, if we remember our childhood, or as a mother or father, you remember when your first child or second child or third child was born, what was the feeling? Even when the child came in the womb of a mother, it changes your brain. the settings of your neurons. It is not just psychological thing, but it's more neurological changes occur as mother or sometimes father. So it's a fact that each one of us has compassion, not as a God gift, but also as a biological reality, neurological reality. But slowly what has happened, but before that I would underline here, in my opinion, all the religions in the world were born out of compassion. And all the revolutions in the world were also born of compassion. The two opposite facts. But when someone like Jesus or Muhammad or Abraham or Buddha, and in the contemporary world, Gandhi, when they have felt the suffering of other people as their own suffering, they did not keep quiet, but they tried their best and then they fought to elevate that suffering. They did everything, even some of them made supreme sacrifices. But the spark was compassion. Similarly, we may not be agree, and I can never be agree being a peace laureate with any kind of violence or approach of violence. But may it be Fidel Castro, may it be Che Guevara, Mao Zedong, Lenin, they are also the people when they felt the suffering of masses as their own suffering. Something is wrong in the society, it's unjust in the society, the inequality in the society. That feeling was so deep that they have taken some action, created some ideologies and theories and so on to elevate that suffering. That was rooted in, that was systemic, that was institutional, that is whatever, cultural, but they fought against it. So these two streams are opposite to each other, but the spark was single. And in all the social transformation movement, someone has felt the suffering of others as his or her own suffering. But unfortunately, all the religions claim that they are teaching and preaching compassion. They forget that their root was compassion and they have to live with that. Those who practice any religion, if that person does not practice compassion in life, that can never be religious. How religions can impose compassion from outside, or a priest is going to teach you compassion, which is innate inside you, and your religion was born out of that power of compassion. Mercy, kindness, benevolence, service, these are good human traits. But they cannot change those causes which create and give birth to structural and institutional and systemic sufferings and those problems. But when we talk of compassion or compassion in action, that is altogether different. There are three things in human connect. One is, which you said, referred just, that is sympathy. When you learn that your friend's mother is sick or somebody passed away in the family, then you express in few words in sympathy and then you move on. And your friend also forget after some time, because so many people say, oh, sorry, to learn that your mother passed away or your father is sick or something like that. That is the outermost circle. Then the inner circle is empathy. When you feel the suffering of others as your own suffering, that makes you a good human being, but more emotional. And there is a danger that you may merge. You can be drawn into that suffering of others. And how long you can carry the suffering of people and planet and friends and relatives inside you. And that makes you one day depressed, lost, defeated. And then you say, what nonsense? Why I should care for so many people, or why should I care for my own people? Forget about it. My life is my life, and leave it like that. The people call it empathy fatigue. Sometimes they think that it is compassion fatigue. That is the wrong notion. Then comes the innermost circle or the nucleus, where you feel the suffering of others as your own, but you do not fall into it. You stay away mindfully or wisely, and then emerge as the problem solver. Then you take action to solve the problem. That is the power of compassion. Now, in my case, for example, I am not different from others. Nobody is different. Sometimes the upbringing, sometimes the education, sometimes the family environment, these things keep on putting the layers on that innate compassion. Sometimes the environment squeeze uh, the circle of compassion, which remains confined to uh, very close ones. So that can be expanded. That can be expanded through experiential learning, through training, through voluntary work, some other kind of social work, to give some challenges of problem solving in the communities. Many things can happen like that. And my experience in all these years, that thousands of people who worked with us directly and other thousands or maybe 100,000 worked indirectly, their compassion was ignited when they were able to see the problems and they could feel the problems, and we helped them, simply helped them, because the compassion was there, but it can be ignited. And the most powerful way, or the most, I would say, effective way to ignite the compassion of others, that we have to bring people in contact with those who are already living with compassion in action. There are good doctors, medical professionals. There are good policemen. There are good academicians. There are compassionate politicians in some cases. There are you can hardly find the compassionate faith leaders. So sometimes I say that the faith institutions and faith leaders should also be given the training of compassion so that they can live with compassion. If the religions really become compassionate, then there would not be any fight in the world. Most of the fights would go away. If leaders of Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Jews, everyone becomes compassionate to each other. So that is something which we can do through various ways. But it is very much possible, and I can vouch for it.
Thank you. So in today's day and age, we are watching, groups of people being killed. Our society is just under, strained with war and other problems. How do we, and as particularly in human rights work, right? You see, for all of the people, the children that you've rescued, there's probably 1 times, 2 times, 3 times more, right, that are being trafficked, that are suffering abuses. I've also, seen that particularly in human rights, right, working on right to education in the country of Colombia with Indigenous kids. I would go back every year for 6 years. We're going to fight the case. We're going to take it higher. We're going to appeal, but we don't see many changes in 6 years, right? So how do you keep that hope when you sometimes maybe, does it ever feel like you're going 2 steps forward and 1 step back?
Good. Well, the social change or sustainable social change does not occur in 1 go or 2 go or 3 goes. It takes time. So the social reformers or change makers have to be resilient and patient in dealing with some situations. And they should keep on reviewing, definitely, that what strategies, what tactics, what approaches work and what do not work. One should be very open to learn new things. Otherwise, if you are complacent and you are stuck to your ego, because sometimes ego becomes your driving force that this is the best approach I am taking. Nothing is the best approach, actually. We cannot claim. I never claim that what I did is the best. Not at all. It's always a scope for learning and reviewing and reforming in our approaches and in our actions. So that is important. But another thing which I have learned, what I have learned that there is always a reason to cherish, to celebrate, to have fun and party. So how one can enjoy and be happy with small successes and achievements. If I'm going on the path to end child slavery. If I walked a mile, or even one step, two steps, if I'm moving in right direction, whether I was able to free a child or not free a child in that step on that mile, at least I was walking towards that, and I'm confident that I'm on right path. I can enjoy. I can feel happy about it. But in my case, I was very lucky that we were able uh, to help freeing children uh, who were kidnapped, who was taken away from their parents, who were trafficked, who were sold and resold, and their mothers lost all the hopes that they can ever find their child back in their lap. And the children lost all the hopes that it's possible to meet the parents again and so on. But the moment we are able to liberate a child, and that child is reunited with her father or mother, uh, it is such a joyful moment. It is unspeakable when I feel, not see, feel freedom, feel liberty. The goddess of liberty smiles on the face of that child who is first time experiencing freedom. And the mother, out of joy, start crying and the tears roll down her cheek. I can feel that God is smiling and saying, okay, Kailash, you're worth, at least you have done one thing good today. And that gives immense power and pleasure. I lost 3 of my colleagues, as I said. One was shot dead, one was beaten to death, and one was also dead. My house has been robbed of, attacked. My family was attacked, and I was attacked. I have my left leg broken, my right shoulder broken, my head is broken. But even then, I am happy because I can enjoy the small success in my life instead of waiting for the great success that Kailash will enjoy only that day when he will get the Nobel Prize. I never thought that, I never imagined, nobody could imagine in India, all the Indians, many Indians are sitting here. Could you ever imagine that someone who is unknown to the country and the world, Kailash Satyarthi, his name will appear one day that, oh, he is the first Indian born to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Nobody could believe. I could not believe myself. So I did not wait for that. I was enjoying every day in the same manner. Sometimes I miss because now I cannot go to rescue the children because the police, the employers, the slave masters, they know my face. So they will remove the children before I reach there. So that is the difficulty. And I cannot change my clothes so easily. I wear these clothes always, so I'm noticeable. So I miss uh, those. But my colleagues do it, and I'm very happy that they do it. But more importantly, I tell you, is to enlarge the circles of compassion and to build a worldwide movement to globalize compassion, which is my sole purpose now, to solve not this problem, but many others problems allied with that. No problem can be seen and solved in isolation. They are intermingled, and we have to approach those problems with one strong approach, and that approach is compassion in action.
I have a question from the audience sent to us by email. It's about youth, right? It's obvious that your passion came from working with youths, wanting to work with children. You also clearly love children. We can see it from video, and Rohan will always remember you, for example. So how are, and you envision youth as our leaders, they're our future, right? How do we empower them? What do you feel about them? How are they going to make a difference?
Well, I don't think that I could ever empower young people. The youth empowers me all the time and they inspires me all the time. Many years ago, when I first said in a conference, international conference, that I think we have made a big mistake by educating our children. And that time I was the founding president of Global Campaign for Education, which was the single largest civil society movement in the history across 170 countries or so. But I said that one of the wrongs we made that we teach our children. So everybody was journalists and everybody was asking, what is that all about? I said that I'm not talking about teaching alphabet or mathematics or basic learning. What I am questioning is we teach the identity of child to begin with. You are American, you are Indian, you are Pakistani, you are Latino, Brazilian, Chilean, Haitian, Sudanian, or whatever, South African. That identity is given from the birth. And child will never know the identity unless we teach that who are you. That is the teaching. We teach you are Hindu. You comes from the greatest and ancient, most ancient civilization of the earth. And you are like direct son and daughter of God, something like that. Or the Muslim, oh, you are warriors, you are strong, you are change makers, you are, and Christians, most compassionate, most kind, most human. All these kind of teachings come from the beginning that divide humanity. I would not call it education which divides humanity. I will not call teaching which divides human beings in any name of religion, culture, caste, gender, nationality, because children have never been responsible for making these divides. It is we, wise people, rich people, powerful people, people in the governments and so on. We are responsible in the history. So what we should learn the other way around. We should learn from children instead of teaching them. We should learn truthfulness. We should learn simplicity. We should learn forgiveness. We should learn transparency. So for me, childhood is not an age. Childhood is an ocean of learning. We can learn from them and we can be inspired by them. So it goes to the young people. So what we can do, at least, that we have made a lot of mistakes by imposing layers after layers of our own teaching of divide and discriminations in the minds of our youth. That was a sin. If we can wipe out or we can erase some of those layers of divide and discrimination, that would be the best way to do something with our young people. If we are able to do, then no voice can be more powerful, more compelling, more influential, more honest than the voice of young people. So in my whole life, I have full trust on the power of young people, and that power has to be harnessed. That power has to be channelized. We can give path for them. We should have trust as friends. Friendship with the children is the key. We have to create a child-friendly world. We have to create a child-friendly school, college, university. We have to create child-friendly homes, child-friendly families. And the friendliness comes when we mutually trust. You don't impose yourself on your child, but you learn from your child, and vice versa, it should go on. Only then you can create an equitable and just world for future. That should begin with learning from children and making them friend, and making young people friend. So many young people are sitting here. Not too many, but there are many. But let me also underline, this morning, Akhtar Badshah Saab, my brother, I told that he is an old young man. So he was so inspired that when there was a photo session, everybody was standing for the photo. Some of the youth, girls and boys in the university, Washington University, they sat on the floor. They jumped on the floor. And the second or third young person who jumped on the floor and sat was in front of everyone. We were standing and he was sitting with all young people, was Akhtar Badshah. So it's always a kind of state of mind, being old or young. And my definition is simple. If you have courage to question, and if you have resilience and determination to find answers to questions in the world, you can never be young. But if you lose asking questions around you, then you are complacent and you will become old at the age of 15 or 16 or 20. So better, yes, Rohan. So you can never be old. You have also given me this chance to shake hand with you. So how can you become old? Because I'm not old and I'm your friend. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me bring it back to the local. We've talked the global, we've talked India. I want to talk about Seattle and how your concept of compassionate communities can inspire us. You know, we are a community with great wealth, but great wealth inequality, with poverty, with various other forms of inequalities. In your compassionate communities, asks for equal access to education, fair labor, right? Fair wages, quality healthcare, sustainability of resources. So as you come here and think about us, what advice can you give us and how can we bring this into our own community?
God. You have not appointed me as the advisor to this university so far.
Well, it's done.
So I
We'll do
can't
that.
give.
We'll do
No,
that.
I'm just.
We will
just joking.
give you an honorary
I-
doctorate, in fact.
No, I have no capacity to advise, but I can share only my experience and my own learning. So I'm not a priest or a leader. If you go to a leader, he will give you 20 advices with no time. I have to think, what should I say? So anyway, when we say compassionate world, we begin with compassionate communities in India. Earlier, we called them child-friendly villages or child-friendly communities. We have created more than 1,300 child-friendly communities in India, in different parts of India, or child-friendly villages. A child-friendly village is a typical Indian villages with all the problems and so on, and all the possibilities and the potential. So a village where we attain 4 things. One is no child exploitation, no child abuse. Means no child labor, no child sexual abuse, no trafficking, no child marriage. 1. 2, all children, irrespective of their caste or community or gender, must be attending school. So 100% enrollment or 100% retention, which is difficult 100%, but maybe 95, 96%. So all children are in school. Thirdly, all school children are encouraged to form their children's parliament by way of democratic election. So they learn democracy. India, we are proud that we are the largest democracy in the world. But it is equally needed or very important that this bottom-up democracy or inclusive democracy or participatory democracy, dynamic democracy, effective democracy, whatever name we give it to that democracy, that should come from these children. They learn election, not like the politicians do the elections. They don't throw mud on each other because they don't know how to throw mud. Before they learn different things, that how to be more helpful for each other and come out with new ideas that how they are going to solve a school problem or village problem. They come with their manifesto and agenda and they contest election. Secret ballots. So they make their children's panchayat, what we call the child panchayat, bal panchayat or children's parliament. And then they are recognized by the elected village institution, which has money, which has power, what we call the Gaon Panchayat. Sharma ji is sitting here. He knows and he can guide further. But this is something which India has a very strong law on Panchayati Raj, what we call the village institution, empowering village institution and leadership. So how did it work that these children's panchayat leader, they bring their issues. If there was no separate toilet for girls, if there was corruption in midday meal distribution, or their teacher absenteeism or dropout or whatever, or if the children do not come to school for 3-4 days, then the Bal Panchayat people will go and knock on their doors and find out what has happened. And if the child is sick, then they call the doctor or they do something possible. They learn all these things. This sense of moral responsibility. There is no legal responsibility or no legal mind on them. But what is lacking in the world, the biggest deficit is the moral accountability deficit in the world. What is serious thing is the moral responsibility deficit in the world. And my children in our villages, they learn the moral accountability and moral deficit without any legal imposition on them. So that becomes the child-friendly village. And they learn that how they can live together as Hindus and Muslims, as man and a boy and girl, as high caste and low caste. These things are completely diluted. You can hardly see any kind of discrimination or tensions in those villages because after 3 or 4 years of working together, learning together, helping each other together, and fighting for the whole cause of all children, they just wipe out these kind of problems of communal bias or gender bias or caste discrimination and so on. And now we wanted to build it as a compassionate community where other issues could be taken up, issues related to women, other caste and other issues that could be brought in, because some of these children who joined the village children's panchayat 5 years or 10 years ago, now they are grown up and they wanted to take it forward. So we are converting those 1,000 or more villages into child-friendly villages into compassionate communities or compassionate villages. That process is on after I launched this new movement of Satyarthi Movement for Global Compassion. So it is a kind of evidence or proof of concept that how compassion in action can bring about long-lasting, sustainable social transformation without pouring in money from outside for building a separate toilet for girls or for giving teachers or classrooms. Or these things are all, I mean, money is already there with the panchayat people. The whole thing is that the demand should come from the bottom, and the panchayat people, the authorities have to act on it. And when this demand comes from the children, then nobody could ignore it. No village can ignore it. So that is the experiment has been successful. And then we call it, let us enlarge that circle of compassion, where the people emerge as the problem solver. This disconnect, which is the biggest curse, should go. And we should learn how to walk together, how to talk together, how to know each other, and how to know the problems of each other and can solve the problem in small circles. So I have a simple, I won't say dream, but uh, it is, it is, it is a, I would say, clear purpose in my second big leap in my life at the age of 70 years. In fact, I am saying it 70 years because I would have said 50 years, but you have already said that Kailash has been working for 50 years. So you are sorry about it. You have disclosed my age. So anyway, so my dream or purpose is very simple. I see a compassionate world, and I invite you to dare to imagine a world which is compassionate. Compassionate governance and politics and leadership, where the well-being, smile, freedom, justice of the last person of society should be in the helm of every single decision taken by a government. I see a world where businesses are compassionate, where the wealth and profit is shared with those who create that wealth and profit with their hands and lands. That world I see. I see compassionate hospitals where the doctors are not money-making mongers of money, but they should feel the suffering of those patients and their relatives as their own and find the solution. Compassionate policing, so that this uh, interrogation killing or killing at the time of arrest and in police lockups or the incidents like George Floyd must not happen again anywhere in the world. And this is not a singular thing in America, that is everywhere in the world in one way or other. So compassionate policing, compassionate judiciary, you are expert on it, and you were saying, and that's true also, that this sexiest behavior in the judiciary must go anywhere in the world. And that requires compassionate judiciary. And that does not mean that forgive those offenders, but don't treat them with a biased mindset. It should be under the law, according to law and constitutional provisions. But more importantly, I see compassionate religions, where the religions can live with oneness and their uniqueness together. They can follow both things in one go. Where every temple, every mosque, every synagogue, every church, every holy place should be the safest heaven for a needy child. If a girl is in danger, if a child is hungry, she can knock on the door of the nearest holy place, whether it's Muslim or Hindu or Christian or whatever, Jew. And that should be welcomed. That child should be welcomed because that is the safest place for her. I see that world of religions. And that is not just a dream. 50 years ago, when I had a dream that child labor, child slavery would be on the forefront of the political discussions, in the helm of corporate social responsibility, and every government has to have laws as well as constitutional provisions if they are not there in some countries, but definitely the schemes to eradicate child labor. It is the truth today. Though we have not solved the problem, but nobody can deny the issue of child slavery and child labor in the world today. No government can deny. So this is possible. And I tell you that one day our world would be a compassionate world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, our time is up, but we will continue the conversation downstairs. Please take the stairs down. Kailash Satyarthi ji will be signing books. He has 2 incredible books that are worth all you reading and purchasing. But I do want to take this opportunity to thank you for your vision, for your work, for your inspiration, for your leadership. And even if Pope Francis doesn't declare you one, you are a saint.
Actually, how it is possible? Pope Francis need not to declare me a saint. Or if he does, thanks to him. but let me tell you that this morning, when I asked the students in Washington University whether you wanted to make your university and create the circles of compassion where the students and teachers, faculties join hands together in knowing each other and solving each other's problem, and then discuss the problem in the neighborhood, problem in the poor communities, the immigrant people, the Black communities, or whatever. And then try to figure out that how you can solve their issues within the university. And once in a while, once in a month, one can go in those communities and sit and talk to those people and figure out that these are their problems and we can solve it. You can create a circle of compassion. And if you create the circle of compassion here in this university also, because there is a problem solver in each one of you. There is a leader in each one of you. There is a change maker in each one of you. When I was receiving the Nobel Prize, I lost my written papers on the dais. Some of you know. Shesti is smiling because, remember, now she is a leader here. And but I am so fortunate that she had worked in the organization with us some years ago. So when I lost my paper, a story came to my mind. There was a heavy fire broken out in jungle. All animals were rushing out, leaving the jungle, looking for a safe place, including King Lion. And Lion noticed that there was a tiny hummingbird flying straight towards the flames, towards the fire. And he shouted surprisingly, "What are you doing? Committing suicide?" She said, "No, sir. I was born and grew up in this jungle. I'm not going to leave it. I'm going to extinguish this fire." More surprisingly, she shouted, "Come back. What are you doing?" She replied, "Sir, look at my beak. I am carrying a drop of water. I am doing my bit." And she flew. That was the legend. Dear sisters, brothers, my young friends, whenever you feel that you wanted to do something for humanity, it is because of your hummingbird is calling you. Don't suppress. Don't suppress. Take some risk. Be a little bit courageous. Get rid of your shyness. That is the hummingbird's call. That make you a better human being. You are a good human being, but you want to become a better human being. I am here to awaken that hummingbird inside you. If you like as to become more active problem solver, you can form a circle of compassion. You can begin with 2, 3, 4 people, 5 people, 6 people. Would you like to join that circle of compassion? How much? How many of you raise your hands? How many of you raise your hands? Many of you raised your hands. Somebody has taken the photo so you cannot fall back. Thank you so much. Thank you.